this video, I'm going to give you 7 questions to ask to wow an interviewer, plus 1 question you should avoid at all costs. And hint, it's not about salary or compensation. I'm Pamela Skillings, an interview coach who's helped hundreds of people land their dream jobs. And the 7 questions I'll cover in this video will bring you one step closer to landing yours. So let's get started. 1. Why are you hiring for this role? This question is perfect if you want insight into what they are or aren't looking for, what the company culture is like, and what the relationship was like with the previous employee. Plus, this info might inspire more questions to ask, now or in your next interview. 2. What do you want the person to accomplish in this role in the first 90 days? The interviewer will love this question because it shows you're dedicated to reaching your KPIs. It also could give you a look into how the company sets goals. You'll be able to tell if they're looking for grinders, if they set ambitious but reachable goals, or if they're planning for a really laid-back onboarding. 3. What has worked well in this role in the past? I like this question because it can bring out some real honesty. It's a way of learning what kind of success they're looking for, what you should focus on when you're hired, and what they don't want to be repeated. Overall, great insight into your potential future role and work environment. 4. What are the biggest challenges with this position? This is a diplomatic way to get to the ugly part of the job up front. The reality is you'll have to deal with challenges if you're hired, and knowing about them before gives you an advantage. If you've already been told about the main job challenges, you could go with the company variation. That would be, what are the biggest challenges the company is currently facing? It's a great question for understanding the big picture and how your role relates to higher level priorities for the organization. The only drawback with this variation is that companies might not be willing to share their true biggest struggles during the interview. So maybe save this one for later in the hiring process. 5. What's the current process for XYZ? For example, if you're a marketer, you could ask, what's the current process for converting MQLs to leads? Or if you're in HR, it would be something along the lines of, what is the current onboarding process? This type of question shows that you understand what the role involves. You care about what they're doing, and you want to familiarize yourself with it. Use this one to get to know the processes you'll need to succeed. It's also really helpful to get an idea of where and how to improve these processes. Bonus points if you sneak in a, have you considered trying relevant industry tip here, if you see a bottleneck in their process. 6. What's your favorite memory from working here? The best way to ask a culture question is with experience-related questions. So instead of them giving you a simple answer, they'll have to tell you a story that paints a much more vivid picture. I like asking about a favorite memory because it's something they usually love talking about. But if you have specific things you want to know about the company culture, you could modify this. For example, if you're wondering about their in-person versus remote setup, you could ask, what do you like most about seeing your coworkers in person every week? It's helpful to ask these questions because the info online won't always paint a clear picture. Just don't overload the interviewer with company culture questions. Make sure you mix them in with questions about the practical aspects of the job. A good rule of thumb with culture questions is to ask one at the end of each interview. Okay, so we made it to the final question. Lucky number 7. Is there any other information you need to evaluate my fit for the role? This is a positive spin on the common, what are your hesitations about hiring me question. I don't recommend using the negative version because you won't get a straight, honest answer. Either the interviewer has been trained not to give negative feedback, they're not comfortable giving negative feedback, or they just don't know the answer yet because they're still processing the interview experience and they need to talk about it with their colleagues. It also prompts a focus on the negative right at the end of the interview when you want to be closing strong. It also gives you an easy opening to respond without making them feel like you're defensive or posturing. You can even go with an apologetic answer like, sorry I didn't address that fully earlier, and then move on to explain why you're the perfect fit in that particular area. On the other hand, sometimes the job just won't be the perfect fit for you. This question helps you assess the situation sooner, so you don't spend a week waiting by the phone. All right, so those were the 7 questions to ask to get the most out of your time while impressing the interviewer. Come back to them before your next interview, so you're all prepped for the big day. But before you go, I also want to share the number 1 question not to ask. You can ask any other frowned upon questions about salary, vacation, etc., but none of them will come close to the bad impression you could make with this one. It's, what does this job entail? Or a similar generic question that basically shows you have no idea what the company does or what the job's all about. This is an instant red flag for interviewers. It communicates that you aren't prepared. You didn't read the job description, obviously. And maybe you didn't care enough about the opportunity to do any research at all. The key is to never ask questions if you could have Googled the answer or easily found it in the job description. It's completely understandable if you want a little bit more clarity. Some job descriptions are pretty basic. They don't provide a ton of information. But in that case, you should ask for clarification instead of asking a general question. For example, just to clarify, I'll be working on creating outbound sequences with the goal of increasing revenue by X%. Or, I noticed this is a leadership position, but didn't catch the team structure. Can you walk me through it? Do you notice the difference? These questions give you the same answers as, what does this job entail? But they'll seem much more insightful and show you've done at least a bit of research in advance. It's a game changer. In all honesty, you'll only have time to ask a max of 3 or 4 questions at the end of your interview. To make sure you get the information you need while impressing the interviewer, try this 3-step structure. 1. Write out all of the questions you want to ask and keep the list next to you. As you go through the interview, write short bullet points for the questions that get answered. Then, when the interviewer asks, do you have any questions for me? Take a pause, glance at your notes, and identify questions that could make a difference in this interview. That could mean questions that weren't answered or that allow you to showcase your skills in the best way. This will ensure that the questions you ask are insightful and relevant, getting you to the next round. Plus, you won't ask about something that they've already covered. Just be careful not to get so distracted by taking notes that you neglect eye contact and engaging with the interviewer. And one last tip, if they ask, is there anything else I can answer? Try not to say no. Either say something like, you were really specific, all of my questions have been covered. Or, my personal favorite is to say something like, I'm sure I could ask you questions all day, but these were the most important ones I wanted to talk about. This shows you're curious, but you won't let it get in the way of respecting the interviewer's time. Those were the top 7 questions to ask in an interview, and one to avoid at all costs. I hope this was helpful in landing your dream job. Make sure to follow Big Interview for interview advice, and check the description for some recommended videos following this one. Good luck, and see you soon.